Alrighty, welcome to another fine day of working on open source code live on Twitch. Because why not? Why not show off doing cool stuff with Python on a project that's actually written in Java for people who don't want to write code in the first place, which is what NiFi is all about. And automating the hell out of it, which is what I'm all about. So today we're going to look at some stuff. We have just done a release this week of the project by request from a few people on the Slack or Apache NiFi. There is a Slack if you like Slack. Let me find it for you. I will show it to you. Everybody loves a good real-time messenger client with the rest of the internet. So here is the Apache NiFi Slack. It is available. You can go and join it from the NiFi homepage. Come and ask questions. Come and hang out. Poke me to do things if you need them. But yesterday, one of the guys was asking here, "Hey, why don't you have a new release out yet?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I should finish that because I finished the testing late last week with Otto, and then hadn't actually released it because my day job got in the way, as it often does. But fair enough, because they pay me and therefore should get priority. And we didn't have a release out, so now we do. Let's go and have a look at that. So, our 35th release. I drafted up some notes for this one. Zoom in a little bit. Now, one of the main reasons to do this was since release 15 down here, we've switched from master to main as our default branch, following the standards of the community as it moves. And so it's better to have a release bump with that, so people are looking at the right places at the right time. I think that's probably a good idea. Also, a lot of people wanted parameter context stuff. There were quite a few issues and questions around parameter context, so I'm glad to get base support for that out. What we're going to look at today is an ongoing issue around doing version control where parameter contexts are included. But this is Diet Coke, not beer, so don't worry too much. It'll be beer later. Not during the witching hours though. After 5. After 5. And a few other useful updates that people have requested as well. So this closed 4 or 5 issues, which is always nice. It's always good for a release to close issues. But we need to carry on fixing stuff. Now, there's 2 areas that we were looking at recently. One of them is starting to use GitHub Actions instead of Travis and other things. And this is kind of nice because we can automate a lot of the release steps. So we can say, hey, run all the tests. If the tests pass, then issue the release. Quite a nice thing to do when we're closing a PR. We can obviously do it manually, as we do at the moment. There is a release process in docs under dev notes at the bottom. Here is a release process, which is pretty boring and simple. But Travis is an additional dependency, as we already use GitHub. Travis also is free, and their way of doing things free is often they take a long time. So I might push an update and wait several hours before the test complete, which is not optimal, whereas GitHub Actions tend to be quite quick, particularly as I am a paying member of GitHub, because I use it so much. Thanks, Microsoft. They haven't ruined it yet. Have they? They really haven't. I don't think they've ruined it yet. So one area to look is at GitHub Actions. The other area is to carry looking into the issue around version control for parameter context. Now this is blocking some users, so this would be a really good thing to fix. We started looking at it. We needed to prepare a test harness, which we can do. We stopped to fix a bunch of problems and do a release. Now on one hand, philosophically speaking, it is good to tidy up our release and test process so that it happens more reliably and more quickly, so that when we do fix this, we can push it out as a release and it's quick and easy to do. And on the other hand, people might say, well, why are you rearranging the kitchen when you need to make breakfast? You know, or whatever analogy you prefer, wherever you happen to be. I don't think either is particularly more important at this point. This can be worked around at the moment, although it has been open, for a month. I have other issues that have been open for longer, true. I think that it would be good to have a more reliable release process, so if we fix this, we can immediately push out the update, get that working, and then we can worry about this. But if anybody wants to jump in and tell me they have a different, strong opinion, then I'm fine with that too. So, let's go have a look at how the... why don't I flip a coin? Actions or... This is actually the remote. Actions or the bug? It's tails. We'll do the bug. Alright. So, what we need for the bug, let's have a think. We got up to setting up parameter context, so we can make a test harness for it. That is very good. Now we need to have somewhere to test version control across two different systems. So we probably need more Docker stuff, so we can set up more Docker stuff. Now, do we want to do this with or without security? We do need to test security between environments, but it's not a good idea to conflate two issues. So another bad habit to get into is, I can fix multiple things at the same time. But then, of course, they start interacting in ways you hadn't expected maybe. And that can cause ongoing issues. So I think what we should do is we should attempt to fix this in an insecure environment. And then we should attempt to test it as well in a secure environment to make sure there's no interactions. So, do it in stages. So let's go set up ourselves Docker insecure, two environments that we can move versions through. It has to support parameters, it has to support version control. So if we go look in our resources, Docker, tox full will probably be fine. We could set up a different compose for this, but I think we can just extend the existing master one. I just realized that the resolution of my screen is pretty tiny, make it difficult for people to read. So let's just fix that midstream, which is always a bad idea. See all the ridiculous number of screens I have lying around. They're not all plugged in at the moment, to be honest with you. Make it bigger. Yeah, we got our screen back. Cool. And we'll just resize here. Screen capture. I'll have to adapt just a moment. Alright, reset that. It's doing the thing where it doesn't want to do the thing that I want it to do. Ah. Hey Otto, how you doing? It doesn't like that I've resized the screen. It's very sad at me about that. Here we go. Here we go. Hey, Flankstack. Good to see you as well, Tim. Yeah, there's a lot of Java involved, right? Are you coming to hang out on the screen while you have your morning Java to go with all of the Java you play with all day? Because obviously that's a great idea. All right, this is a bit bigger now and easier to read. So let's go have a look at our Docker Compose while we chat with people. So we have got some legacy versions of NiFi here that we don't want to play with. We also don't need to stop these locally. Let's not do that. It's going to try and load it locally. That's okay. I didn't actually want it to start it. I thought that was a collapse icon, not a start icon. Lol. What we'll do is we'll double up the most recent version that we use so that we're not going to have any interversion issues that might be causing the problem that we've got. So let's just duplicate NiFi. Let's call it NiFi 2. That's less informative. Let's call it NiFi dev. So that's our dev environment, and then NiFi is our prod environment. We need to change the host name and the container name because we won't use a hyphen because certain systems don't like those. So NiFi dev, We have to make them separate names so they're addressable on the network, internal Docker network. We'll do the same for registry. Oh, we need to change the port as well. So we'll just do 8081. So it's easy to find. And then we'll do the same for our current version of registry. That we'll call it registry dev. Update these as well, and we'll make this on 108081. Super easy to find. Super easy. Okay, so that'll give us 2 environments to work with. What we then want to do is we'll push this up to our deployment host. Very good. And then on my local machine, I'm just going to kill that Docker that got started. Come on, wake up. There we go. We've got some containers running. Let us destroy all these containers. Quiet down our environments. Cool, cool, cool. Cool, cool. And it is tidying up. Look at it tidy up. Man. Come on. My laptop isn't running that much stuff. Maybe I should close more things. Let me close more things. Particularly all these Chrome tabs. My God. Just, I'd have no memory left ever. All right, let's jump on our management host and get these containers up that we're now going to use. So config, what is the IP of the management host? Here it is. CentOS at this one, yeah. By the way, guys, is that easier to read when I've upped the res like that? Is that like now, is it too big and slightly comical, or is it actually a bit better like that? Just check that we've uploaded the file to the right place. Yes, we have. Okay, so Docker compose up. Creating our extra machines. Cool. Thanks, Tim. Yeah, it's a bit warm in here today. So, dropping the old jumper. Winter wonderland of warmth, i.e. my wife is working in the house instead of her offices and turned the heating up. This is traditional. Right, so that should allow us to access those environments. So let's go and make sure they've come up. They may not have actually booted yet. I think the original ones are up. Cool, so this is going to be our prod. Currently nothing running in it, great. Check those environments are up and have stayed up. Registry, NiFi, NiFi registry dev. Yep, cool. So those have stayed up as well. Okay. Sorry, just needed to fiddle with my microphone there for a minute. Better now. Looks better now. So we need them to be up, and then we can start designing tests to move between the two. But I think the way we should structure is we should do version control between the two without parameters to show that our pathway works. And then we add a parameter context to see why it's breaking. Let's check if the other one is now up. So it should be 8081. Should look identical. Yes, it does. That's great. And let's go look at 108081, which is our... No, that's not right. What did I say that port was? 18081. Let's check if the base one is up. The base one is up. why is our secondary one not up? Have I put that on? 18081, 18081, registry dev. And is it still showing us live over here? Looks like it should be live, registry dev. Right, yeah. Guess I can shell into that machine and look at the logs. See why it might not be coming up. Why might it not be coming up? Yep, that's loaded. That's looking good. We want to... Where's our registry dev? I dislike how the double click does not do copy paste in this environment. Minus item. Okay, so look at our log. Says it's up. Registry dev 18081 minus NiFi registry. But it is not appear to be. Now, what have I not done? So we've passed through the environment variable that tells it what port to present itself on. Same here. We've set 18081 to be exposed, which is... that's why. We've exposed that. We have to expose it as that port like this. That's why that's no good. Okay. We do... Could recreate registry dev now. Recreating a registry dev. Okay, now it's rebooting. So now if we Docker compose back in... Oh, we don't. We'll just wait a minute. It'll come up. Let's start thinking about how we're going to test this. So the best way to do this would be to build it through as a fixture available to the TOX environment. I mean, we can hand build a test now and then, I suppose, pull that back into a fixture. Maybe that's a good way to do it. So let's do that. We're going to be testing and versioning. We're going to be doing some new tests about multiple environments. Now, I think we should have these tests anyway. We should have tests for importing and exporting between environments. So I think we should build it into the fixtures. So let's go have a look in conf test. And what we'll need to do is we'll add these to the available endpoints. So we've got a default NiFi singular, we've got the regression options, we've got the secure options. I think we should add another option which is secondary. Oh, we could add it as a pair and then we could just use those. So these here, for example, default registry endpoints, that's used down here to decide what's going to be tested against. So when we run our big tests, it chooses which set to use. And so we can work on whichever sets we want. So we might say, hey, test multi. We might set up a new test capability. I think that's a good idea. So test underscore, call it test CI/CD because that's what most people often ask for, is moving between environments. And this will form the basis of doing that through. Then we go down here and we say wherever we look at this, we need to add a control for test CI/CD. So if CI/CD, then this, and this is going to be pretty much the same as how registry works in regression, I think. So if we look at these endpoints, we've got that one for defaults, and what we'll do is we'll add these ones here. So there's two sets. We'll add another set, CICD, NiFi, endpoints equals clone this. No, that's the secure one. We want to use the default and modify the default. There we go. So there's the first one, and the second one is this again, but on 8081. Just to be tidy. Now we'll do the same thing for. I actually think we're only ever going to use the two together, but because this is being built in a particular pattern, it's good to be consistent, so that when I come back to this in 6 months and cannot remember what the hell I was doing, like many developers, I will blame myself if I don't make it at least consistent with how I was using it. So we want the default one. We also want to add our secondary one. So that is our default, and this is going to be registry dev. Now we had to change the port so we could access it from here, but we have to change the name and the port because that's the internal Docker name. So we'll treat these as a pair. We'll use the main NiFi registry as our prod environment, and we'll use dev as dev. All very straightforward, I think, in that sense. So now we have to tell it, if you are told test CICD, use those ones and these ones. Great. So that prepares that for being used later. And then what we can do is we can set default to false, set CICD to true. We will add, maybe I'll call it promotion. No? No. Okay. We'll add CICD to dictionary. Cool. Okay, so that prepares to use those two. Now we need to test, we need to check our way through the logic for what happens with registry test endpoints during parameterization. So it is going to parameterize tests against both. Well, we don't necessarily want to do that. We're not doing regression on these ones. So we can ignore both of those because we don't use regression. I might even put an assertion here just to prevent that. So assert what is that? Is it all? No, I can just do an and. That'll be easier. So assert test regression false. It might be easier if test CICD through assert test regression. I probably won't like that. Just do this. It's going to say, hey, you can make this much simpler. I know I can make it simpler. I'm trying to make it easy to read rather than oh, fine, yeah, do it. No, I don't want you to do that. Cool. We don't want to execute tests in that case. So we've got our endpoints, we've got our controls, we're bypassing this. See where we get to next. All right, so set up the session fixture. So this runs every session. For URL and NiFi test endpoints, check that we can connect, check they're available. This is just doing an up test, making sure that they're up before we try and run our test sequences. If NiFi API and URL, blah 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 blah. These are all good. Test stuff is available. That's what we want. And we've got these various fixtures here. It will do cleanup at the end. That is good. And these other fixtures are create and destroy for various capabilities in our tests, which right now I don't think we need to worry about because we're not really going to use many of them. We'll start using these ones later, but not right at this minute. So now we want to set up a construct where, when we want to execute these CI/CD tests, it might be a good idea to do them as a separate file of tests rather than in test versioning. This test versioning is set up with a lot of regression controls, which we don't want to use. What we might want to do is create a file that we only execute when we're doing these tests, particularly between environments, because we're going to have to chop back and forth between them, and that'll really confuse the automated testing when it comes to cleanup if we're not careful. It assumes it's only talking to one environment at a time. So let's make a new test file. Let's go and grab our initial statements. And we have a think now. The first thing we want to do is test moving stuff between the two environments. So we actually have a demo of this already in platform, which is run in FDLC. Maybe I should have called it FDLC. We've got our two environments here. It generates containers. It's got various names. Now we know they're up already, so we can skip that. We've already got something in conf test which ensures registry clients. Just go and check that's definitely there. Yeah. So ensure registry client is available for the environment. And that is used by fixture version flow. So we may want to call that have a look at what it does. So it'll use the particular environment we're talking to, generate a flow that we can then use for version control. But it also doesn't understand that we might have multiple environments for that. So I think we might need to do this kind of by hand for these tests. But then conf test is really helpful to tear that stuff down at the end. I'd rather not build stuff by hand if I can avoid it. Tricksy. Okay. What is a good way of doing this? Well, let's see if we can get this to work across multiple versions without breaking it. Before the stream, I ran a full test to make sure that it was already working. So if we break it, we're definitely breaking it. So let's try and where's the first use of fixed version flow? That's what we're going to use. Desktop flow version, fixed ver flow. So we'll do a test with this. Let's see. Oh, that's kind of useful. So, test dot fixture. We can just honestly just copy that. No, that's our conf test definition. We want the actual usage. Yeah. Def two blank lines. Def test deploy remote flow call it a basic flow. Yeah, that sounds good. And then we're going to use our fixed version flow for that. Very good. So this wraps it inside a function, and when the function completes, it will clean up all the stuff it creates. If we haven't done it ourselves, which is what CompTef does for us. So that's a bit easier than doing it all by hand and remembering to clean it all up if it breaks. So what we want to do is it's going to generate all of those pieces in fixed version flow. So we're going to get a bucket, process group, a registry client, a processor in that process group, and we're going to save that flow and download it. Going to get the flow in the bucket. I think we are going to return all of that to the user in order to use it, which I think is pretty handy. Now I wonder if there's a way we can set this up so that we've got all the tools across 2 environments and then automatic cleanup. What does this one do? Yeah, that's import export. Which is what we're actually going to do. So this uses fixed version flow and then adds additional stuff, which is import export of the flow. Maybe we should use that because that already creates it, then exports it. Though we might want to modify it in the future so that it's got a parameter context in it, which gives us an overall test. So maybe we should expand that one. Let's move that back up. Don't need that. Let's move this back up. There's controller fixtures here, the users and user groups. I think we want to do a variation of this where it's got the option of having, we can add a parameter context to it and modify it. So let's use fixed flow 30. That's the one that's currently being used, I think, down here. Yeah. Yeah. So let's make a dupe of that. Split and move right. That's all the steps we need to use. So 30, we want to get flow export. So that's going to be our promotion flow. We want to move it to the other environment. So let's say that got flow 1. Export is that. We really just want to grab that output, which is fine. We don't need to reload it back in because we're going to then connect to the other environment and attempt to load it. What we will need this to do then is disconnect from the existing environment and then connect to the other one. Which is why maybe we need to do all of this by hand, because log on, log off sort of business. And I think the cleanup assumes that it will stay attached to the correct environment, because none of these actually have log on, log off in them. They just attach to that particular environment and they stay attached. So I think we'll really break the conf test setup if we start doing multiple environments using these processes. I'll have to like extend them. Very difficult. Well, let's get the process going. So we want to export. Yeah, let's do it all by hand and then we'll clean it up. So So go back up here. These are all the various. Writing tests is so exciting. So the first thing we need to do is, well, there's a registry client and all of that sort of stuff. I suppose I could test this on the conf test on the basis of connecting to two environments, creating something, and then connecting to the other environment and making sure they delete it. So we could do that. So let's try doing a... It will clean up everything. I think that's fine. So let's just do a test PG. So F test G in both environments. Let's use the PG fixture. This instance, and it will generate a PG in the current environment whenever it's asked to. Well, that's fine. So let's do that. So we will go now with the tests. We've got access to both environments, but we would need to do our own connection strings and updates. So we need, and we have access to those objects as well. So you'll see when this stuff, when the comptef stuff rolls, I believe we can access the individual objects via request. So we can say, hey, I want to talk to this environment. Hey, I want to talk to that environment. Let me see if I can remember how to do that somewhere up here in conftest. The part of the controls, not generate test. Yeah, request.param, where the parameters are. Oh, can we get access to that though? Just in normal usage. It gives us the URI, that's fine. Your registry client, whatever is using that. Then that local name is generated. That local name is set. I hate it when it does that. From the params in our request. That's what we're interested in. So that's the regress, the flow registry. But I want to be able to flip back and forth between them during testing rather than just set up a connection. But I don't think that's going to work here either. I mean, it's useful to have the local name, but because it's pulling the param from the request, I would have to have all of that information available. So I think for this whole setup that I've got that jumps between environments is necessarily not going to be effective. I'd have to look into using params and pulling them out in order to make all of this work, and I think it would become very difficult to read for anybody running through it. I don't think that would be a net gain. And maybe this is not the best way to do it. Let me have a think about that. I think the whole session setup will fail for this, essentially. I suppose I could set it up so that there is a CI/CD test that only runs on certain tests, the way that regress NiFi registry. So regress flow reg, it only does those tests on these ones and runs those stages. But that's again more complicated. I don't think going to help anybody. So what I might do is just do a separate test capability here without using any of this. Is that the best option? Well, let's do that now. So let's strip this back out. What we'll do is we'll take these pieces, we'll use them directly in the test file for now. Those bolt house. Then various stuff that can come back out as well. I think we've essentially reset conf test at this. I think roll back on. Okay, so let's just do these tests manually. So what we'll do is we'll label these up as well, actually we could just nick the FDLC script because it does all of this anyway, and then use it as the basis for the tests by editing out all the Docker stuff and getting it to run through the process, but adding a parameter context. And that would allow us to step through and see what is actually happening. That is not a terrible idea. There we go. Okay. So we will need, got our various bits and pieces. We are going to copy some of this. I don't need all of this generic preparation because I've got pieces over here. So let's just copy some of that. So we will need names that are used. And we will declare the environment information from our I'd rather declare these separately than use them in that sort of elaborate list and thingy point of view. So we'll say prod NiFi API that one, prod reg API this one. Prod, not prof. Prod NiFi internal network name. So it's prod reg internal network name, isn't it? This is to make the client for NiFi within the Docker network, which is really annoying otherwise. That, and copy all of those and duplicate them for dev. Except they're now on one port higher. That name is registry dev. Cool, okay. So that's broken those out into a more easily accessed set of parameters. Very good, very good. Okay, so let's go, and we've got our names, we've got our address points. We're not going to pull out the instructions. We do not need to boot the environment. It is already booted in Docker. Let us do our steps. So we could do these as separate functions, but I think I'm just going to waterfall it. So let's just do notes. Step 8. And we can actually just use all the log stuff. That is, we got logging set up for. No, we don't need to. What I'm going to do, I'm going to import NiFi API of using the subsidiary modules. This way it's consistent. Cool. So prod NiFi API. That one. Just check that that URL is formatted as expected. Prod NiFi API URL div. Yeah. /NiFi/API. What I might do is duplicate the name to save editing it the whole time. What other names do I use here? Dev-reg API URL. Prod-reg API URL. And do I have the name? Okay, we'll come across that later. Okay, so this will create, connects to the dev environment, creates a reg client. We need to change the name, URI. So the URI is dev-reg kernel. That look right? http://name/port. Yeah. Cool. So that will create those two with no description. So I think that's fine as well. So we've created our registry clients. We now want to connect to the dev environment, the NiFi and registry. We'll do that. Very nice. We are going to create a process group. Both of them. That will create a process group. Why does it do this formatting thing? No, it's copying exactly as it was, but it's kind of annoying. Ugh, this formatting. So that's that call there. First line, then that, then that, then that. Like that. With that. So we create our dev process group. We create a processor in our dev process group with some pre-configured parameters and a pre-configured location just to generate flow file processor. We may want to change that type so that it uses something that works better with a parameter context, but we'll be fine, I'm sure. Okay. So that creates our dev flow. We then create a bucket. Comment here. So create dev bucket and save flow. Yeah. So we need the dev process group object. Have we not already generated that? yeah, dev process group 0. We've already got that object. We've already got the bucket. Oh, we should probably save the created processor. Dev processor 0. Just save that object in case we need it later. This gives us our bucket. I mean, we could do get bucket, but we'll just do a save bucket. So dev bucket 0. We've got that. So then we've got the registry client already because we created it. Oh, we didn't save it. So dev reg client that prod that cool. I mean, we could tidy this up later by only connecting once and creating all the things, and then connecting to the other one and creating all the things. Suppose we could do it that way. It'll make it faster to execute. Let's copy it from our initial script first, and then we'll restructure afterwards. Otherwise, we're going to confuse ourselves. So we've created the bucket. We've got the client. Now we want to save the flow. So save flow the process group is registry client is dev registry client. We're currently connected to the dev environment, and the bucket is dev processor process group bucket. Great, and there's our dev flow name. So we would expect that to work. It's great. We then export our version flow. We get our version flow and we export it. Like that. Our bucket is our bucket. Very good, very good. So then we export the bucket. Export flow from dev bucket. Very, very good. Then we need to connect to prod. So these two steps here. Connect to prod and import flow into prod bucket. So connect to prod. Create our prod bucket. We'll label this. We'll save it for later. Prod bucket. I might get rid of these zeros because I'm not planning on having additional. I don't feel like I'm going to. I'll replace all of those. Replace all of these, of which there's only one right now. Replace that one. Good. Tidy. Cool, so we've made our prod bucket. And then we want to import our flow into our prod bucket. So we want to use our prod bucket identifier as the target. Our exported flow version, I'm going to rename that variable dev exported flow. So it's super apparent what's going on. Now that says version flow. Where is version? It says pass in the version flow because that's the instructions. Yeah, so this is the flow we saved here. Step 5, you were saving the flow. Yeah, so please now call flow equals step 6 export dev flow. So there's the out, return out. So we've grabbed that, we've saved out as that, we've passed it through. So that should work. We've imported the dev flow. So the next step would be to deploy it to prod. Deploy flow to prod. We've got our bucket. we want to get the flow in the bucket that's been imported. I think import flow version does not return the same object. Let's just test whether that is true. Prod flow version in bucket object. Or no, prod flow. For now, I think they'll end up being the same thing. Our prod reg client we already have, so now we just want to run our import flow version. So we want prod bucket good, prod flow good. Then all the way back up here we should have our prod reg client good. Now this is import flow version, bucket encoded flow name. It assumes that we're already talking to the correct registry, I believe. Let's just go to that function and just check that that's how it works. Yeah, it uses the registry objects, and it'll be a registry call. Registry version flow snapshot. Yeah, okay, so we don't, that is going to do what I think it does. So this will import the flow into prod. And then we can do a change and promote a change. We're not going to do that at the moment. Let's just check that this whole process works as sort of built. So we're not using comp test, we're not using that to the group. And what we'll do, we'll open up our Python console. And we'll see if this thing works. So we're not using any of these at the moment, so let's just tidy up as we go. Let's declare all of this stuff using a PyCharm shortcut, Alt-Shift-E for execute, which just runs everything in the current window. I could execute the whole script at once, but I want to sort of step through it to make sure that it's doing what I think it's doing when I think it's doing it. Actually, now that we've copied everything across as well, I might optimize it slightly. So this creates the dev. And what I might do is I might move the prod stuff down to where we start working with prod. So we'll put that here. So prod reg and prod. That there, delete that, add this here. So connect to the prod environment and do prod stuff. Connect to dev environment. Connect to dev environment and do dev stuff. So what I'll do is I'll connect to dev, NiFi and reg here. Note that we connect to NiFi to create the registry client. We need to have the registry connection available to do stuff with registry. The thing with the way that NiFi and registry work, which is the way it is that some actions are done via NiFi, which works in registry on your behalf, and some things are done directly against registry, depending on the things you want to do. It makes sense when you work your way through it, but it's still non-trivial to understand the first time around. So let's check through this waterfall process. So we've declared all our things. We're going to connect to registry. That was pretty straightforward. We're going to declare a registry client, and that's connected. Now what we can do is we can actually skip back over here and to our NiFi and our registry environments. We can actually watch this as it happens. So our dev NiFi URL, what we can do is we can just lay that out here. I'll copy it and check this is working as we want. Oh, not API, the actual NiFi environment is our actual registry environment. That is our dev environment, because it's the 8081. Is our dev NiFi environment. So if we go and look in our hamburger menu, controller settings, registry clients, there is our dev registry client pointing to dev reg. Very good. That's what we expected. Let's procedurally create a quick flow. Magic! Ah! Yeah, if you're looking at this channel and you haven't used NiFi to create stuff in NiFi before, then that is how you do it. Roughly what it's there for. We created that. We created a processor. It's doing nothing. That's fine. Cool. Okay, let's create a dev bucket and save. Well, let's do these as two separate steps. So we create our dev bucket, save it. That fetches the flow. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say dev ver flow. I'm going to save it, and then I'm going to see what the object is. I think they're two different objects. So this should now be marked as version controlled, which it is in that bucket. And if we go look in registry and refresh our content, we shall find that we now have a bucket when it loads with a flow in it. Yay! Such excite. Very service. Wow. Cool. Now, what kind of object has been returned? So if we do type on dev flow, we have got a version control information entity. Now, if I'll probably change this name, but let me just grab that. What type is that? Is that the same thing? No, they're different. So I remember this from when I was first implementing all of this. There's a difference between the object that NiFi expects you to use and what registry thinks the object is. So a version control information entity is the object returned when you save a version, but it's not the object you're supposed to use to manipulate them, which is one of those things. So what we're going to do is we're not going to use that object because that will confuse people, and we are going to use this object. So let's use that object with that name. Very good. Now I think the identifier will be the same, but if somebody reads through this later, we want to promote practices where that doesn't ruin their life and they're wondering why it doesn't work and they don't happen to check the types and know that they're different, which annoyed the hell out of me when I was working this out years ago. Right, more caffeine. So we now have the flow object. That dev ver flow.identifier is the UUID of the flow, which is good. So now we're going to export the flow. Now, if we have a look at that, oops, I didn't mean to bump us around like that. So now if we have a look at our exported flow over here, it is a string with the whole definition in it. And it's pretty big. So let's have a look at it. So from pprint or pprint exported flow. Boom. You will see it is a very large file. JSON is a string, I think. But it's got our definition in it that we can work with. We've got our various fields defined. Part of the problem with moving things between environments is UUIDs are unique to that particular NiFi environment. This is the big challenge with NiFi registry with multiple environments. So when it is imported, certain UUIDs will be automatically updated. It will go, I recognize this is a different environment. One of the challenges with it is that nested version control won't do the nested bucket. So it'll say, hey, that PG ID or bucket is not present on the target environment, but it's still referenced. So you'd have to manually go in and edit that. Now we could do that in our methods here for certain use cases, but not for all use cases. And the problem is that if I implement something that only works some of the time, somebody will eventually get annoyed at me. And so sometimes it's better not to implement anything at all. But we'll see how that goes. So we've got our object, which is good. We're now going to connect to prod with that object saved. And we saved it in memory. We could save it as a file, but the serialization is, at this point, arbitrary. Otto did prove that sometimes pushing it out to file doesn't quite work, but we're still passing through the same serializers, I think. So I think it'll end up being the same. I think the serializers in Otto's case as well, we're dealing with XML and templates, not with this JSON format, which hopefully also isn't broken. But hey, we'll find out. So now in prod, we create our registry client. Let us connect to our prod environment to validate that that is true. We're not just importing and exporting in the same environment. Registry clients, yay! Prod reg client, good. It's talking to the right registry here, not regdev. We can look in this NiFi flow with the client. It is pointing to regdev. This one's pointing to regprod. Sweet. Cool, let's do our next step. So we need to create the bucket. And now we need to import the flow version to that bucket from our dev exported flow using our prod ver flow name. This is where things start to get hairy. So that is imported. Let's have a look at this object. It's a version flow snapshot. Yet a new object type. Yay! Yeah, so now we've got our third object type that we deal with, which is the snapshot of a versioned flow, which is different, if you'll recall, from the other two, the information object and the, which ones were they? So you've got your information entity and your versioned flow. One of them's the registry version, one of them's the NiFi version. See, NiFi models, version control information entity, registry versioned flow, different things. Essentially, the way we do the export is we intercept the JSON as it's pushed to registry. Then we cheat putting it back again. So this version flow snapshot, if I print that out, is the NiFi formatted version of the imported flow. So this, you see this is a different layout. It's got a lot of extra information in it. It's actually now being imported to the new environment. Your UIDs have been updated and that sort of thing. This is the step I think will break with the parameter context because it won't know how to handle them. The same way it doesn't know how to handle nested PGs. It'll go, hey, that ID doesn't exist. What are you doing? I think. I don't know yet. But we're going to prove it. So we've imported the flow. If we go look in our bouquet, so let's go to our prod bucket. And change our port back to our prod service. Here's our prod bucket with our prod flow in it, which is going to be the same as our dev flow. Okay, good. So now let's deploy that to La Canvas. This deploy flow version none means just do the latest one. And it's going to use our prod client and our prod flow and yada, yada, yada. Do that. I pressed the wrong button. Do that. I have given it the wrong. That's import flow version. I think I need to get version after doing that. Let me check. So, yeah, get flow in bucket. I need to do that get flow. Because it's a different object. It's very important. So we'll do import flow version. We will ignore the result of that for now. And we'll do prod flow. I kind of want to call it object, but I'll just call it that for the moment. Want a prod bucket, and it's a prod version flow name. So now if I run that, that will work. And then this prod flow. There we go. Now that returns the object. Let's capture what that is. So r equals underscore. That underscore is the last returned object. Type r is a process group entity. So this is our deployed prod flow process group. So we could say prod PG. What did I call the dev one? Did I call it dev process group? Yeah, so that's prod PG, which has been generated from the dev one. So now if we go back to our prod NiFi, we have our flow on the canvas from the dev environment, all working and looking very happy. Yeah. So we know that our test script here, as copied from our FDLC script, works to run without a parameter context. Let me just check what time we are at. We just spent a bunch of time going through that. I want to make sure that I'm not missing any messages from anybody in chat or anywhere else. So I'm just going to pause for a little moment here and check things. We are not missing any chat messages from people. That's very good. We want any tweets that we're worried about. I'm just looking at my spare screen here. I don't want to bore you with my full Twitter feed. No, I'm not important or interesting today to anybody who needs to talk to me about stuff, which is very good. So what I think we're going to do at this point, before we dive into the parameter context piece, I am going to pause the stream, go grab myself another drink, and come back and we will carry on. So back in a couple of minutes. And we are back. Little Bob Ross shirt today. Love my Bob Ross shirt. Right, let's carry on. So, so we've got it working. Let's introduce a parameter context and see where it breaks. So we could keep this as a test that does that test, but we've already tested all the version control stuff. without doing multi-environment. We might want to use this for a secured environment as a test function later, but let's do the parameter context bit now and then see where we get to. So we create a dev flow, dev processor. Let's create parameter context here. We'll go to our minute. Go get our test parameters function. I might want to just use it from the conf test definition. That'd be tidy. Right down here at the bottom. Where did I put parameters? Move parameter context. Great parameter context. Just needs a name, really, doesn't it? So we go here. We'll need a name for it. So let's make a name. Dev context name. Very boring. Dev. Very exciting, extremely boring name. Love it. Dev param. This. Very good. Very straightforward. I think we should put a parameter in it, just on the off chance that the error only happens when you actually put a parameter in there. That takes the credit. And we can add a. I think I've got it set up so you can actually generate parameter context with a starting parameter. So, yay. I'm the kind of person who do something that helpful. Yeah, parameters equals none. Parameters needs to be a list of parameter context objects. Have I tested that in here? Test. Update parameter context. Oh, there we go. That's update context. Did I not test creating them at the start? I'm a terrible person. The test create parameter context does not have a test where you've already passed parameters in at the start. Terrible. I want to do that now. No, we shouldn't edit more than one thing at once. Let us generate a parameter. So parameters, do that and add that to a list. So if we do this here, name equals that, do parameters, this list with this object in it. No matter what the parameter is, so we'll use that one. Now we need to make sure we're connected to the dev environment, so let's connect to our dev environment again. Let's create this parameter context in our dev environment. I haven't defined the name. Ooh, declare the name. Declare the parameter context. Good. Check that that has appeared, which I'm sure it has. Go into canvas. Am I looking at the right one? Dev. Dev, canvas, parameters. There's our parameter context. I'm going to apply it programmatically so that our test remains valid. So then apply that to the group. I should have an assign. Here we go. Assign context to process group with the EG and that just returns the parameter context ID, so I don't think we need to save that because we already have the main context. Yes, just do underscore equals that. I'm just to assign context. We want to do our dev process group there, and we want our dev param context dot id. Let's just tidy this up a little bit so it's more readable. Great. Let's execute that. We're good. Let's check that it has taken. Now we've assigned it not to root. You can see here that root has no parameter context, but if I go to parameters on the process group, ta-da! So this process group has a parameter context and is version controlled. Now, let's see what happens if we now run through our additional steps. Now it's already, this won't be exactly the same as testing it from scratch because all that stuff already exists. But I think if we save a flow version, we may get an interesting response. Flow with that name. So that would create a new flow version. Yeah, so this is, we want to add a version to, not create a new version. But we can copy that from here actually. So we changed the dev flow. This would update the flow, whereas without creating a new one. Or should we start from fresh? I don't think it'll particularly matter. We may want to test both pathways later. Process group, registry client, bucket, flow ID. Yeah, so you either provide a flow ID or a flow name here. I think what we might do is tidy everything up, clean out, and then do a run through with the parameters involved, just so it's definitely a clean run. So let's remove our controls here. We'll do it by hand because I can't be bothered cleaning it up otherwise at the moment. What is it? That's that environment. Good. NiFi flow. This. Run a parameter context. There's a registry client. We good. Go to the bucket. Great. So we've deleted all our things. Environments are more or less clean again. Let's go back. Start a new console, and we'll start from the top. Take it from the top. So declare our things. And we can pretty much skip down to the parameter context bit. Good. Check that all of that has appeared in the dev environment. Yeah, good. Parameters. And from master. I will right click on this and go parameters, and it will show that that is now set. Very good. Should I assign it to something? Would that be betterer? That would also text that it actually carries through properly if we're going to do any of this. So what we might want to do is in this process create the parameter context before we create the processor object. And then in the processor object, we will set, so if we go in here and look at parameters, let us set this to a number, and then I think we can use that for scheduling in here. Can scheduling be a parameter? No, it can't, but a property can be. Batch size. No scope for support. We might need to change the processor we use just so that it can be a parameter. Yeah, let's use a different processor. So, because we don't actually going to make it do anything. Do some boring processor that this have field. Why do I keep choosing processes that don't have good parameter context support? There's a Kafka processes do, don't they? Let's choose a Kafka process. There we go, consume Kafka 2. And then we can set something like the, that says variable region. I'm sure you can set that using parameters. So let's set Kafka brokers to something using parameters. So the name of this is consume Kafka 2.0. Two underscore 0. Yeah, very good. So we'll generate that. Scheduling period 1.6. Also terminate. Correct. And we need the values for that. So we just go and get that. So proc this. We inspect the processor. We should get a view of the properties bundle. Now I think we have to create the processor, then provide the config, not just a definition. Okay. Let's get that. This. Attempt to create this processor. Now dev processor object component config properties and bootstrap servers is, or topic matter. The config DTO, I think I can add properties to this and it works. You go and check canvas. Let's create processor. Create processor. Config, that just sets a scheduling period, it doesn't actually test. Creating child properties. How about update? That also just sets, I'm so lazy, it just tests the scheduling period, not actually anything else important. Okay, let's do it this way. So config DTO, let's examine that config DTO, go to implementation. Yeah, it accepts the properties thing. Properties will probably just be key value. So in here, we'll do this, we go properties equal predict. I want the property of topic to be set to the hash bracket topic, like that. That might work. And then if I up here, I create this, I set that to topic, and then all the rest of that can stay the same. Well, actually, that can just, it doesn't really matter what the name of the parameter is. Let's see if that works. Go to this. Might have been it like that. That doesn't like that. Sensitive parameters may only be referenced by sensitive properties. Oh, because I created it as a sensitive parameter. So it would need to be a password for that to be true. So if I create this as false, and go back here and parameter that. Okay, let's try again. Create parameter context. assign parameter context, create processor using parameter. See if it worked. So topic, here we go, is set to that value, which is a parameter context, which comes up here, and the value is not live. So that is configured. Good. So now we want to see if we can save this. So can we save a flow version when a parameter context is attached? Dev bucket is. Oh, it already exists. Oh yeah. So I could just do, you know, get if not exists, I suppose. But like, if it, I'll just tidy up. Oh yeah, leave the flow but not the bucket. I'll just do the same here. Leave the bucket. What's the flow to be a clean environment? Okay, let's try again. So execute this. Yay, we now have our dev bucket again. I could have done get. I can do a try except and whatnot, but let's see what we get now. Okay, we have managed to save the flow version, which you would expect to work, I think, because save flow version, I think, uses the NiFi command, not my cheating command. And now we fetch the flow object, and now we attempt to export it. We've exported it. Let's print out our object and have a look at it. So there's our snapshot metadata, parameter context. Yeah, the parameter context is passed by name, dev params, parameters, etc. So it's passed by name. It's interesting. Now we've got topic. This is the details of the processor. That's the property descriptors, but the actual properties topic refers to the parameter context, so that is exported. We've got the rest of our configuration for that processor, which is fine. We've got our rest of our flow content. We discuss our bucket, our flow, etc. Okay, so the parameter context is passed by name. Super interesting. Let's now connect to prod and see if we can repro this error. So we connect to prod. We generate our registry client. Yes. We create our bucket. Attempt to import flow version. And it doesn't fail. Doesn't fail importing to the bucket. I find that interesting. So it's imported to the bucket. Let's get that flow. And let's print that out. So that's the prod flow object ready to be instantiated. I wonder if I export that now, if I'll get the same object that I had before. So I say prod exported flow. Prod export. They should be the same thing, right? You'd expect them. So if I use exactly the same command that I've used here, but for the prod bucket and the prod flow identifier, these two objects, if I use deep diff, should be the same. Let's p-print it and have an eyeball first. Prod exported flow. There is our eyeball on it. we've got params none. Yeah, and our snapshot metadata, that's okay. In the other flow, it had the parameter context listed at the bottom. This one does not have that. Topic still refers to a parameter. These by eyeball are not the same. Parameter context name dev params. So the PG thinks that there's a parameter context called that. Let's do a deep diff. So from deep diff. And let me just go and look up what my deep diff test all is, because it's got a couple of parameters on it that we use. Ignore order? Yeah, we use ignore order. So we will do dev exported flow and prod exported flow. Oh man, yeah, there's a lot of I mean, I expect some things to be different, but because all of the IDs are going to be the same, are different, but not correctly collect that. Okay, so let me do this. Diff equals this. Right, let's have a look at that diff. So there's our value change. Look at our because it's seeing it as a string because it's a string rather than yeah, I should probably do a JSON loads on it. Load it in as object. Okay, well, let's try and generate the error, which I think when somebody instantiates it. So now if I try and instantiate that, see if we get a splat. There we go, there's our unexpected error occurred. And deploy faux version, create process group from this. Yeah, now we should go and look in the log and see what's actually happening on that one. So that's in the prod. Docker exec -ti. That's going to be NiFi prod /bin /bash. Can I do it that way? Yes. Let's make a gap here and let's run it again. Make it angry. Yep, so that's definitely failed. And here's our result. So standard process group, very good. Updating standard process group with version flow snapshot. There are two differences, processor. I don't get an error here. Maybe it's a NiFi user. Tail -n50 NiFi user. Oh, hey, there's some errors. Okay, let's do a tail -f. Generate it then, so NiFi user. And let's run this again. Well, actually, in the prod environment, PG is already there, so let's. Oh, interesting. It does seem to create the PG. This is our prod environment. This is our prod registry. We've got the flow and everything. And that's all tidied up. So let's execute this. You know that's going to fail. Let's look at our log. So this is all authentication, unexpected error, NPE. That's not very helpful, is it? Trying to update parameter context. I think it's trying to update the parameter context and it assumes it exists, except it doesn't exist. Because the very first thing at the top of the error there is update parameter context. So it's an MPE, fine. I bet you if I create that parameter context, it won't fail. I wonder if that'll work. So, create prod parameter context. I don't even think it needs to have the same parameters. I bet you, if it just exists to be updated, I think it will work. So if I just do create parameter context here, put it there, call this the prod param context, and we'll give it a name. It has to be the same name. I don't know this is true, but I expect this is true. We're still connected to prod. Validate, we're definitely connected to prod. Very good. Create a parameter context. Delete PG. It created the PG. It didn't successfully attach it for version control, so it got to the point where it's updating the parameter context and it went sploot. So that's fine. So now let's import it. No, we've still got an error. Is it the same error? Probably gonna, oh, okay. It might be that it's not looking it up by name, it's looking for the ID. Get up to update parameter context. So it created the PG, it didn't import the processor. Hasn't got the, does it expect the parameter context? How would it update the parameter context if the parameter context doesn't already exist? That's really interesting. So let's go have a look at this function. So deploy flow version. It is attempting to deploy the parameter context. So the flow has already been imported into the prod registry. And it may have not the information in it that is necessary for it to work. What we need to do is probably examine the differences between the flow dev registry and the flow and the prod registry and see what weirdness is going on. Yeah, so this is going to get the client, list the versions, use a snapshot metadata, try and create a process group from that flow. Create process group with the vision and component and the version control information from that flow out of the registry. But it's going to have the wrong information, possibly. Because it's just pulling that. So now is there version control information, bucket flow registry version? I don't think that there is any thing about parameters here. So we see groups, registries, buckets, flows, version states, but no, but nothing around parameters here. So I wonder if the flow is imported but not in a way that is acceptable. How do we compare that? What's the easiest way to compare that? I think the exports are still the easiest way to compare that. So let's stop tailing that log. Let's go and look at our export. So we've got the dev flow version, dev flow export, which is dev exported flow as a string, prod exported flow as a string. We want to load those. And do we want to load them using the DTO type? Let's have a look at our import process, because that seems to be where this is failing. Import flow version, go to implementation. So this uses the version flow snapshot. It loads the encoded flow as a DTO using the DTO, the data type object. And then passes it to create the flow in the bucket. So what we should do is we should just load it as the object as well. We can use utils for that. So we'll call this dev past flow equals iPy till upload, and we will this. Okay. Cool. So we'll load dev exported flow with its DT. Oh. DTO. That's for file path. Coded flow, imported flow, encoded flow, which is of type string. Yeah, that should. Maybe I have to set DTO. So maybe I have to say dev pass flow, blah 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 blah. DTO. Nope. None-type object has no attribute deserialized. Registry config API client. Oh, the client's not instantiated. I remember this problem. I should really fix this problem. We need the client. I'll try. No. Saying none-type object. It's because we're calling NiFi config registry config API client, but the registry API client is not currently initialized. So we can do something like NiFi.versioning.list buckets. Got the buckets now. There we go. So we had to reinstantiate the client for that it was available to do deserialization. We should fix that. I know Otto has already suggested a way to fix that, so we'll do that at some point. So now we've got the dev past flow, which is of type object version flow snapshot. We may want to import it just as pure dicts, but we'll try this with deep diff. I think that deep diff will complain anyway. So this should be prod exported flow, and we should call this prod past flow. Great, now we'll try and do a deep diff. So diff equals deep diff of dev past flow, prod past flow, ignore. Oh. 16 values changed. So these are UUIDs that are changing, which is fine. Timestamp is fine. Snapshot metadata timestamps are fine. Bucket names changing are fine. Description, no description. Bucket link, flow name, flow identifier. So there's nothing here about the parameter context changing. It's interesting. So if we look at the dev past flow and we go to flow here, where do we find the bit about the parameter context? So parameter context name is just a name. No other information is given about parameter context. which is interesting. Oh no, there we go. Parameter context is a separate area, dev params, and the parameters are provided. Now, is there some kind of ID on this? No. Name, description, attribute, map. There's no ID on this that would be broken. So let's look at our prod past flow. Parameter context is not populated. So it's not being imported, it seems. Now, if we force created that, if we updated it somehow with the parameter context, then it might work. But why is deepdiff not showing that? Maybe it doesn't show doesn't work when it's loaded like this. Let's try loading it without the DTO types. See if we can get it to show us that that is the difference. So we'll go back to dev pass flow. We will not load with the DTO, just load the raw dictionary. Same with prod. And let's do a diff for those two. Yeah, so that's printed out. Let's p-print it. Easy to look through that way. Has it identified parameter context, item removed. So it's identified that parameter context is no longer populated in the prod one, but it is in the dev one. So there's our issue. So on import, parameter contexts are being dumped. Now, I wonder why. So, and we know that if we export it again, we get it. So, in our import step, we know that's not the deal. Creating the parameter context so that it can just match it. We know that it's not actually present in the object. So let's delete that. Let's have a look here. Oh man, I realise we're nearly out of time. Look at this. Let me check where I'm supposed to be, if we've got more time on this stream, or do we have to go and do another one? Oh, I do have meetings to go to. Okay, well let's try and... So we know where we're up to. We know the problem is that the import is dumping the parameter context. So this import flow version is having trouble. Let's go have another look at it. So versioning import flow version. So file path utils.load. So we know if we load it raw, it works. But we don't know if we load it with the DTO it works. So let's go and check that. So let's load the dev flow with the DTO again. And let's have a look at that object. So dev past flow. Parameter context is present and populated. Oh no, that's the, yeah, so we've passed it back in from the exported flow. So this step of the process is fine. If flow ID is none and flow name is not none, it's a new flow in the bucket. So we tell it to create the flow. Yeah, and then, so creating a flow doesn't use the object at all, it just creates a blank flow. If not, we're going to update a flow. Then we need to create a flow version with our imported flow from up here. So this probably is the bit that's not working. So create flow version from that imported flow. Now it'll be interesting, if we already had a parameter context in there, it may be when we create a new flow, possibly that flow needs to be created with the parameter context information as separate from the flow version, but don't know. So let's have a look at create flow version. Create flow from a flow snapshot. So we do know that our dev flask flow is a versioned flow snapshot, so that's what it's expecting. I guess I did mark this feature as experimental, so people complaining that it doesn't work is totally not my fault. But I should fix it. That creates a new flow version containing the snapshot. So this is different. So this is migrating. Yeah, so this is slightly different. So if it's not a flow snapshot, don't do it. Otherwise, get the flow, get the registry information. Oh, interesting. And it passes out link parameters. I wonder if that's still true. It didn't put a date on it. I really should have put a date on that. And then create flow version using my version flow snapshot. Now, this is interesting. I've called out specific fields here. I wonder if I've accidentally... Yeah, I've probably excluding these fields. These have probably been added. And I have excluded it. Yeah, that's all it is. There we go, folks. Probably I'm just excluding that particular information. So what we could do is just make sure we import all of these types. So external controller services, parameter contexts, flow controlling. So want to set parameter context. So straightforward when we find it in the end. So flow, bucket, flow context, and snapshot metadata. We need to include parameter context equals flow snapshot dot parameter context. And we should include our external controller services. And that is probably it. Probably. Now, what we want to do is see if there's any other functions that might need that to be included. Because this creates a new version update, but it's different from save flow ver. That creates a version flow DTO, start version request entity with version flow. Let's see if this has anything about parameter context in it. NiFi. Why can't I go to flow name, description, comments, action? Yeah, there's nothing there around parameter context. I suspect that will fix our problem. Oh yeah, Kasha. So we need to go and clean everything out. Clean, clean, clean. And that's running slowly. So delete. Go back here. Clean this out. Clean out our controller services. Clean out our parameter context. Delete it all of it. Registry client. That, delete all the things. Okay, we've deleted all those things. Now I want to delete these things. We're good. We want to go here, make sure there's no things left here. Do all that. Hamburger menu. So check parameter contexts. None. Check registry clients. This one, let's delete that. Then we go to this registry. Go our bucket manager. We want to delete the bucket. Okay. let's roll through our test again. And in fact, I suspect this time, if I just look at the way this is working, I could probably just run the entire script. So, get flow and bucket, then deploy flow. Booyakasha. Deployed. So this is our prod environment. Now has that, which now has the context. The context is set on the param. The context is there, and is magic. Yeah. We debugged a thing, team. Good job. It only took 2 hours. Right, so what we're going to do is close all of that. So this tests that particular error. What we might do is mark this as not something that PyTest usually runs, but keep the file because it shows what we fixed. And we'll commit this change. Well, we actually need to run our tox over it, don't we? Make sure that doesn't break anything else. So we'll do that. But I think this is where we're going to end the stream for today. It's been 2 hours. What we'll do is we'll tidy this up. Oh, sorry, Otto, you commented earlier and I completely missed it. Yeah, so I use the console a lot. And there's better ways to use it than the way I use it. But this is super helpful for digging in like this, right? I might save this video out actually as how to investigate a bug in NiFi because we've solved something in 2 hours despite all my stuffing around. Maybe I'll edit it up and pass it out to say, hey, this is how you dig into a NiFi bug when automating via the API. Make that into a little video. That is failing. Oh yeah, I need to do the cleanup and that sort of thing. So what I'll do, I'll end the stream here. I'll tidy up these tests. I'll commit the change to versioning and push out a .1 patch, which should fix that problem for that issue for the guy. And I'll message him on Slack. In fact, hey, that'll be fun. Let's do that right now. Let's go to Slack. I have repro'd and figured out the issue with parameter contexts in version import export. Totally my fault. Now have a test for it. Will issue 0.16.1. Even worked it all out live on Twitch with people watching. Totally didn't make it harder. Awesome. Cool. So that's all gone well. Took us a while, but we got there. Go team. And now I guess I need to go and do my day job. So thanks for hanging out. Thanks for dropping in, Otto and Tim earlier. And hope you guys have a great afternoon. See you again next week. We're on Slack. Cheers.